Okay, we're here today to wrap up the endocrine system. We're almost there. This has been a doozy of a chapter, hasn't it? So, here we go. What we have left really is the pineal gland, and you should recall this as part of the central nervous system, right? So the pineal gland is located kind of just posterior to the thalamus, and the pineal gland produces the hormone melatonin. Melatonin is important in your circadian rhythms or your sleep-wake cycles, and this is really, I think, pretty fascinating. So as light is coming into the eye, we tend to think about that as being really important in vision, and so we expect those action potentials to come up here to the cortex and be interpreted as sight. But some of the input is actually kind of routed in a roundabout way back here to the pineal gland. And basically the way this works is more light means less melatonin, okay? And so in your normal sleep-wake cycle, as the day progresses and then the sun sets and it starts to get dark, melatonin should rise and that should make you sleepy. If you're in front of your computer screen, staying up late, doing your anatomy homework, that's not going to work. Okay, so with the pineal gland, we're basically done with the true endocrine system, right? We've talked about the hypothalamus, pituitary gland, thyroid gland, parathyroid gland, adrenal glands, pancreas, and just now the pineal gland. Now, we have a bunch of organs with this secondary endocrine function. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on them now because we're going to look at them as we move into other chapters. So for example, the heart produces hormones. They're called natriuretic peptides, and they play a role in regulating blood volume and blood pressure. The thymus, we'll talk about with the immune system. It produces some hormones that help T cells to develop. Adipose, body fat, is actually, at part of its role is as an endocrine organ. It releases a hormone called leptin, which helps to regulate satiety, how full you feel. The digestive tract we'll talk about in chapter 25. A lot of hormones, a lot of this is a little more localized, like influencing other parts of the digestive system, but it also releases hormones, again, that tell you how full you are. The kidneys, right? When we get to chapter 26, we're going to talk about those really, as producing urine, but they're actually, some hormones are produced. Erythropoietin, or EPO, tells the bone marrow to produce more red blood cells. Calcitriol, this is your active form of vitamin D. The kidney is actually the final place where that is produced, and that's going to influence, as we saw earlier in the chapter, calcium absorption in the intestines. And then last but not least down here are the gonads, and we'll talk about those when we get to the reproductive system because their kind of primary role is to produce the gametes, but then we consider it secondary that the testes are producing testosterone and that the ovaries are producing estrogen and progesterone. And we talked about those actually a little bit when we were looking at the gonadotropins, follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. Right? So in males, it's the luteinizing hormone that convinces some cells in the testes to produce testosterone. In the female, follicle-stimulating hormone ends up telling the ovary to produce estrogen, and luteinizing hormone tells the ovaries to produce progesterone and a little bit of estrogen. Now, that's like the brief version. When we get to the reproductive tract, we will look at that in great detail. But for now, that is what you need on the endocrine system. We'll see you on Thursday for our Zoom meeting, and then following that, your chapter 18 quiz will be available.